Pow.
What's going on, everybody? Hey, it's Chef Mad Dog Maggert, and you are watching the Break It Down show. So I am the guest, and Pete is the man,
That's
the
right.
host.
Je suis l'homme.
Beautiful.
Man, I love it. I love that we get to do these things. I love that we get to celebrate each other's success and adventures and talk stories. And
Oh, there's
we
been
always,
success. You got to tell me about that.
well, look, all right. How about this? We are both still alive in spite of ourselves and in spite of the enemy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Um, yeah. So Jamie didn't know, Chef Mad Dog Tony came into prominence nationally because he changed Colin Powell's tire one day. And part of that fun thing is both veterans, obviously. Uh, Mad Dog he's a missing of a leg, he's an amputee. And so there's that part of it. It's like a guy with one leg changed Colin Powell's tire. And so that brought you to the forefront. And this has been several years now, but this is still part of what identifies you.
Yeah. Yeah, it is to a degree. I mean, that thing sort of happened, but I never expected anything to come of it, right? So it's like, I'm like the Al Bundy of Northern Alabama. Like, what are you doing, like, Dad? Oh, I changed a flat tire one time, and it became a big deal. But it's just very strange because everything can be sensationalized immediately, and then
Yeah.
it will die effective almost immediately, unless you're Donald Trump, and then your name is all over all the time. So
All the
kudos to
time.
him.
Yeah. He is the biggest porn star in the world. Like that's really what it is. Like it's
I
just
I,
all,
I like the I
yeah.
like the guy.
I'm not look
Um,
like him or don't like him. He draws people in as if it's porn, and they just cannot. It's irresistible, and yeah, not to our benefit in any way at all. All the everything is focused on this man and everything, and it's deeply distracting from things that really matter.
Maybe it is, but my relationship with Donald Trump is probably different than most people's because I grew up in Florida. I grew up in West Palm. Me and my buddy would go out mudding in his truck, and we would drive into his driveway in Mar-a-Lago, and then security would come out. You can't be here as we're dropping mud in the driveway and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've seen the guy a number of times. I mean, it's just like we grew up in the same neighborhood, so it was just like another person, like where you grew up. So certainly much different now than it was then, for sure.
Sure, sure. When you think about the moment when you had the Colin Powell thing, does that thing, what was his uplift with that? Does Colin share that in his social media as well? I mean, it's one thing to go change some notable dude's tire, but that gets out in some way that is outside of your ability to make it happen.
Yeah, so I didn't actually make anything happen. I mean, I thought about the events of the day and what had happened. I was like, hey, this is cool. He did 35 years, I did 23 years, and then now here we are, we're handing the torch to a new generation, right? And I just wrote on his Facebook page. So the story got much longer, but most people like haven't looked that deeply into it. But so he immediately went to ABC News, and once news group gets a hold of news, the other ones are like they're just like parasites, man. They'll start feeding off of it, and then they'll start making up their own story, and that was kind of like what the most fun was how fake everything became and how sensationalized it became. And I thought that it was great. It was like, oh, Tony did this in middle school. Oh, Tony did that when he was 7 years old. I'm like, this is like stuff I couldn't even remember, man. They're like calling people like all over. And so it wasn't just my day in the sun. Like a lot of people were like, hey, do you know this guy, Tony? Oh, yeah, like knew him like 15 years ago. And so the whole thing just got sensationalized. And that's how I realized that like this whole media thing is just so synthetic, and it's totally okay because people buy into it.
Yeah. Yeah. The does Colin Powell have a conscious thought to say, "Hey, I can help this dude out. I'm going to do him a favor." His favor just has a lot of more weight than your tire on the side of the road, maybe in terms of national attention.
No, no. So on the Break It Down show, you can cuss, right?
Yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Nice. I like it. All right. So here's the real story, which I have rarely told, and I've never done it like in a podcast form,
Here we
right?
go.
So Colin Powell passed away a little over a year ago, and it was devastating to me because I really enjoyed the relationship that we made and put together, and the time that I spent with him and his family. And so that was really kind of special. So here's what actually happened. I'm going down 495 and there's somebody on the side of the road. And so I roll up to him and I get out, and here I am. I'm like, I've got a hoodie and shorts and, my one-legged self, going. I walk right up to him and I'm like, hey, you're General Colin Powell. He goes, yes, I am. And I said, well, let's get to changing this tire. He's like, well, why should I let you help me change my tire? I said, well, you can wait around for a two-legged guy to help you, but you got a one-legged guy willing to help you right now. And then he literally says this to me. Yeah, and I can tell you to go fuck yourself. 81-year-old Colin Powell says, and I can tell you to go fuck yourself. And I said, well, yeah, you could, but then your ass would still be out here on the side of the road. He's like, yeah, you're probably right, man. So let's get to change this tire. And so we did. And they were just like shooting the shit, for a few minutes. And he's like, hey, you were Army, weren't you? I said, yep. He says, I knew you were one of mine. And so that's how it all kind of started. And that's a larger portion of the story that was like never told, that he has that kind of character, right? To even tell me to go fuck myself at 81 years old. So I mean, that was cool.
Yeah, it is cool. That is cool. Did you find that he was charismatic then, or were you
Oh
just? I
yeah.
mean, look, you're
Oh
changing
yeah. I
tires because of
mean,
the guy you are,
but listen, you have a dude with a bald head and a beard like this on the side of the road in Washington D.C. I mean, what would you think? Like, this guy's trying to mug me, right? So,
yeah,
but look,
because
I'm not going to mug you because I've got one leg, so I'm not.
I'm not in the mugging business anymore. Right, right, yeah.
I am totally out of that business. It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
oh, Tony robbed a liquor store. No, he didn't. He's very slow. He's a tactical
Right.
creature these days.
Yeah,
So
yeah. He is literally the one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. He's
right, right.
the I want to get into the leg thing real quick, just because people don't realize, we have this whole 22-day thing that we deal with, and then just
Yeah.
all of the people who, they're not part of the 22, but we're just grinding through our life, right? Like, we lost Mike Day last week. It's not because Mike Day just decided one day, like, hey, I'm now going to quit life. Like, no, this has been on him for a while. And I know we've talked before about the amputee thing, and the rate of suicide is significantly higher in your guys' world. Just, I had a
Yeah.
VA appointment today, and let's not knock the VA too much. It's a very big, complicated, hard machine. But I said, this is the medicine I want to take for the condition that I have. And the doctor's like, not authorized for that. Like, well, I'll just go to Mexico and buy it then and administer it myself, because you can't do this simple thing that's very common across the
Yeah,
board.
you
But
heard
VA,
about what I did when they were like, no, sir, we will not cut your leg off. I'm like, bro, I have young kids, man. So here's what's going to happen. I got an attorney, and I was active duty in the military, and I said, I'm going to Mexico to get my leg cut off, and it will make everything better. Well,
yeah,
then these guys in the medical community freak out, man. So my Dr. Tom Dowd, what a baby. He was like, oh man, now you're twisting my arm to cut your leg off. And I'm like, well, bro, I just need to get better, right? That's all you really want or need, is to
yeah,
get better. And so to parlay that with what you're saying, yeah, the 22 a day is a reality, but a bigger reality is that's only the lens that we are trying to look through, right? 22 a day that are military. What about civilians? What about people? Just people, man. People in your community, in your state, in the United States. And this thing is happening like all over the world. People are just like, yo, that's it. I'm done. I'm done with life.
right.
And I think that is something that's hard, that's a hard really pill to swallow, because it's much like us when we were at MEPS, right? It's like, I don't know what it's going to be like on the other side. And then you go and
Yeah,
you do it, and it's like, oh, okay, this is the other side, right?
yeah,
But in life, once it's over, like, nobody knows, man.
yeah,
Nobody
yeah. Nobody knows.
nobody knows. It's just like, that's it. And
Yeah.
then you're leaving everybody behind. So
You do.
which
You do.
which kind of leads me
Yes.
to why sausages of freedom actually happened.
Why did sausages of freedom actually happen, Chef Tony Maggert?
So when I was in culinary school, I was just like sitting there thinking, and I was like, what is an underrepresented market in the food industry? Because I was like, when you go to the number one culinary school in the entire world, I mean, the Institute of Culinary Education is literally the number one culinary school in the world, right?
Hmm.
When you go there, you can hardly feel your pants because your balls feel so big, man. You were doing something that's big. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to get in the food world. And it's going to be awesome and it'll be easy and efficient. And then reality happens and you realize it's not. It's like, it's hard. And, you've got to marinate your testicles over a hot stove for a long time. And that's not a good idea. And you're working in the defense world and like that makes a lot of money. So you're like, oh, I should keep doing this defense thing. But then you just get caught up in the whole situation. And are you doing any better for yourself? Right.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, in that representation of the market, I really just started to think about sausages more for whatever reason, and how cool sausages were that you could take this meat and stuff it in a condom and make people happy, right? I mean, it really is not a whole lot more than that. But I just thought and thought and thought, and every day I think about sausages for whatever reason. And what I found, and what you found too, right? Because I was re-reviewing some of the things that you have done and talked about, and you have spoke significantly about the Taliban, right?
Hmm.
And the Taliban sucks. We will all agree to that, right? But when you spend time in Iraq and Afghanistan, you realize that they've got some really good people, but you got some bad apples that are in the neighborhood, i.e., the
Yeah.
Taliban, i.e., Al Qaeda, stuff like that. But you got a lot of really great people, right? So the more that I thought about sausages, I'm like, here's this thing that is ultra portable, ultra durable, but the one thing that's universal in the entire world is food. Nothing brings people together like food, and everybody eats at least once a day, right? And so I thought, let's do this sausage thing and make it big, make it huge, where it is something that people can bring to parties, like have for dinner, like a little romantic, uh, dinner date with your partner or whatever. And I just started to think about sausage in this way that was totally different than anybody else has ever done before. So,
Mm.
so my experience with doing the whole food thing turned into, hey, how can we bring people together? And it was, I'm going to utilize social media like nobody has ever done before. That this sausage will not just be my sausage, this sausage will be the people sausage. So we have our site and it will continue to get bigger. And we want people to like tap into the site and we're going to open it up, so people can go, hey, I've had this product. This is what I'm doing. I'm showing you pictures of the party. I'm showing you videos of the party that I went to, the get together that we had, bringing people together and just really having a good time. Not a whole lot of other food products do that. I mean, when you go to the grocery, you get that thing. It's a very transactional relationship. And I've thought very deeply about relationships. And I'm like, I don't want my product just to be transactional where you buy it and then you go and you hide away, man. I want this thing to be very social. That's why we call it the social sausage, because we want people to engage, like to bring people together. So that ties it back to what you were bringing up. What
Mm.
is causing the 22 a day? Why are people disconnected? And can I do something, one small thing to make a food product that brings people together, where people can just break bread and exchange ideas,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you being an Intel guy, you were doing that stuff out on the streets, right?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Ripping
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
grinning, shaking hands with locals and finding out, okay, well, who's doing what, man? What's going on in the neighborhood or whatever. So I thought that very important because I will never forget my experience in 2003 when I was deployed and losing weight rapidly because all we had were MREs. And some locals said, because I had to report to the Ministry of Aviation on a daily basis so we could talk shop and talk about what was going on. I would literally go and we would eat dates and drink camel's milk, right? And these people who in 2001 were those people in the Middle East. And no matter who you were, but if you were from the Middle East, you were those people, right? And it's a shame that we as Americans thought that way and felt that way at that time, right? Because those people were the people who actually started bringing us food from their homes and were feeding us. They were bringing us rice on a daily basis. I mean, and we're getting like nutritious food, right? So that really changed my view of the world, that it was like, it's not those people anymore. It's all about us, man. Like just people, period, you know? And that's why I wanted to start Sausages of Freedom. You know, it's like bringing people together, man, for like the betterment of humanity.
I love it. Yeah. There is no them. It's only us, right? We're all
For
us.
real. Except for the
And
Taliban. The Taliban will still be the them, and they still
you know
suck.
what? You throw an outrageous barbecue, guess who's going to show up? Those motherfuckers. And you show them that you're all right. That's the first step in we being all right. So that's all right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it will be cool. So
In a
sorry for
place
the
where there's
lengthy diatribe.
no, that's all right. We're here to talk, right? So part of that thing, and there is power in food, and there is a connection in food. So of course, like I'm going to go out and eat their food, but here's a game I figured out was I flipped it and I said, why don't you come on to our camp? And I'm dealing with people who are important people. They're tribal elders, they're maybe
Yeah.
ministerial people, and I'm like,
Yep.
and I'm going to walk you right on like the VIP you are, and we're not going to search you. No one's going to touch you. No one's going to look at you cross-eyed. You're going to be with me. You're going to be my guest, my honored
Yep.
guest. And I'd walk these guys on. And look, I got to go do the background stuff with the Army. Like, I'm going to do this. This is how this works. This is what's going to happen. And you got to keep in mind when we go through training, I'm talking to the audience. Tony knows this. When we go through training pre deployment, there's always the suicide bomber that comes on the camp, right? And so I am countering all of that. I'm bringing this person on and saying, yeah, we're going to go eat in the chow hall. And then you got to imagine, Tony, when they see that chow hall and there's ice cream and refrigeration and air conditioning, and you're like, what do you want? You want a hamburger? Do you want lasagna? Do you want eggs? Do you want anything? And their minds were blown, and I've taken them from a point of being in their day-to-day life, and I've pulled them into a magic land. Now imagine how powerful I was. And I'm like, stuff your pockets full of stuff. Yeah, the contracting officer hates it, because there's a bill being racked up. But I'm like, it doesn't matter, man. This is fucking muffins. Let him take as many muffins as he wants, because I'm trying to show him who we are. Instead of being a they, he becomes us.
Right. And it shows solidarity,
Yeah. And some of that food he isn't going to eat, but you know what? You show him that cornucopia, because we have so much, and they live in a land of never enough. I'm just talking Afghanistan. Iraq has a lot of food.
Oh, talk to me about the lobsters on Thursdays.
Oh man. Yeah, and then like on Friday you have like lobster fried rice, because they have all this extra lobster.
The steak and lobster.
Oh man, you can really get an amazing meal anytime you want. And so that whole thing with eating and joining like-minded people. And by the way, once that person lets down their guard and they're important, that phone starts ringing. I'm hearing the secondary conversation. My interpreter is listening, and he's going, "Here's what's going on. Here's what's going on." He's taking notes, and we're finding out things passively that the other guy's talking about. So we're like getting a nature of the kind of phone calls he gets. This guy's trying to not go to jail. This family has a sick relative. This family just had a baby. And it informs you the level of importance as this guy gets call after call after call after call. It's real powerful, but it's all driven by food and respect.
Yeah, 100%.
So when you look at those aspects, and I know you know these things, you say it's sausage. Why is it sausage instead of, I don't know, fucking cookies or something like that?
I think that it could be. I think that it could be cookies. Like how do you break into that particular market?
Yeah.
But I just don't like cookies, man. I'm not a sweets guy, So
Yeah.
I mean, and you're probably wondering, Pete, how I have this, Greek god of a body. It's not a lot of sweets, I got to tell you.
Yeah, I got to tell you. So
it's mostly meat, right? So,
yeah. And, I always say never trust a skinny chef, right? That's the other thing.
No, you should
So
always trust the skinny chef because they're working all the time, man. They work tirelessly. Anthony
yeah,
Bourdain was not fat, probably from the drugs or whatever. But dude, the dude was tireless, man, constantly moving.
yeah, that brings up a good point. You talked earlier about going to the best culinary school in the nation, in the world, and
Yeah.
then you don't just slide into yes chef, no chef kind of world. Like you still have to go prove yourself, even though you have this fantastic world leading education.
Yeah, yeah, you do. But I mean, that's really kind of like, in the military, like a rank structure, right? So even when you're doing the culinary thing, when you're in culinary school, everything is yes, chef, but I'll probably do whatever I want to in the first place, right? So,
Right.
so then you're acting like a private. So you're like, yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, you're probably going to do whatever you want, right? So within some bounds or whatever. So yeah, you have that. So you literally just like learn how to cook, and it's like, okay, cool, but you're not a Michelin starred chef. You've got to cut your teeth in that sort of environment to do it,
Yeah.
right?
And is that not interesting to you to go find a restaurant or go found a restaurant that you can do that at?
Yeah, I do, but I think from an economic standpoint, right? If I were at a
Mm,
restaurant, I would be in one place and I would be waiting for you to be hungry to come into my restaurant to eat, and then you would be sad because you have to tip and stuff like that. And then you would go and you would give me a crappy review, and then nobody would come anymore. And then it would end fairly quickly, just like the Colin Powell thing. It would all just suck. So let it suck fast, right? So
hmm
fail early, fail fast. Um, or you could do this. What if I created a product, a food product, like a sausage, and I could get that thing in every state in the United States? I
Yeah.
could have trucks rolling wheels delivering product. So in our homework, and because we constantly do homework on this thing, during football season, on any given weekend, there are 11 million stadium seats throughout the United States. 11
Okay.
million stadium seats, right? That is so much sausage. It's so much food. It's crazy.
How
And
do
it
you get
gets
people to
there.
pick sausage? I mean, like the fair at least here in California, right? And you know this area. The
Yeah.
fair it's everything but sausage, right? Like we want duck confit instead of sausage around here.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I hear you.
how do you get someone just to say, yeah, man, get me a beer brat and a bun and some, beer.
Well, it's like what's available. If you have duck confit and that's available, I mean that'll be you'll get that. But how much are you going to pay for that? Versus,
Oh
I
man.
pay a few
Yeah.
bucks for a sausage that's absolutely phenomenal. Look, and,
Yeah.
and our sausage is different. It's not a Johnsonville. It's not a Hillshire farm. It's totally different. Why? Because of our process. It's a double
Mm.
grind under vacuum. I mean, the thing tastes great. It's a phenomenal product.
Yeah. Yeah.
We always
Do
wanted it to
you
be that way, though.
Were you an expert in how to make sausage from your education, or did you have to go get smart on that? I mean, it's one thing to say, "Hey, we taste better than Johnsonville," but it's another thing to pull that off.
Yeah, so when you start to look, I mean, a sausage is really nothing more than forced meat, right? I mean, meat that's chopped up and and fed into a tube. So you're like, okay, I got that. And people have been eating sausages for thousands and thousands of years, right? So
Yeah.
to me, it just seemed natural. It just seemed to sort of make sense. And
Mhm.
so in your mind, everything is easy. The executions, is like
Oh yeah.
when it really goes on.
And then the repeated execution and the expansion of the repeated execution, and like it gets really bananas then. When you
Yeah,
when you figure out like who's going to make this, because you're not sitting there cranking up, and then sliding the everything into the intestine. You have to pay someone to do that as well, right?
yeah, you have a co-packer, right, who actually
Yeah.
does that. And I'm writing a book right now because this has been one of the most interesting exercises in my entire life. And I don't think
Mm.
I'll ever have anything like this again, right? So here's the thing. So when you go through the process, and what you initially alluded to is this romantic making sausages in your kitchen. You can make 5 pounds and very romantic, right?
Yeah.
We have the ability to make 9,000 pounds of sausage an hour, the
Wow.
equivalent weight of an Escalade and a half every hour in weight and sausage.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
It
So
is.
then
It
I
is
started,
phenomenal.
like, why not have product on cruise ships? Why not have them in stadiums? Why not have them in grocery stores and here and there and all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
And I've written articles for Black Rifle Coffee Company, but let me ask you a question, right? Your friends invite you over to a party. What do you say you're going to bring? Coffee? No.
No.
We've answered one of the huge life questions. Hey, what are you going to bring to the party? Oh, I don't know. You don't have the answer now is sausage. I got the sausage. It's
I got the
easy.
sausage. I got the
It's
sausage.
brilliant, man.
So, and I agree. Like saying, I'm going to make I like there's a Bosnian restaurant just down the road. We haven't been to it yet, but I'm now that I know it's there, I want to go there because I want to have some good like chavapi and all their breaded sausage that they make there, right? Because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
put like a fila dough and it's wonderful. Or
Yeah, yeah.
burricks, another thing, right? I want to have those things and being able to bring something like that. This is America. You can bring any kind of food. Yes, you could bring guacamole and someone's going to do that. But what if you brought this different version of sausage, that's made in Bosnia, or you bring,
Yeah.
bangers and mash or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So the banger, which still exists, was very interesting, right? So that was the very first product that we were going to do. It was going to be the banger, and all this
Okay.
effort went to the banger. So here's the backstory to that, right? You have to go through the USDA, you have to go through the FDA, you have to go through the FSIS for label inspection through the USDA. You have to have trademarks, you have to have patents. You're dealing with all kinds of stuff, right? Like legal matters. We've had attorneys that have to be on the scene to figure this whole thing out and make it happen. So it's not, you can walk up and just buy a sausage, but there's an enormous amount in the background that goes on to make that thing happen, right? There is logistics, there is the whole trucking aspect, there is the refrigeration aspect to it. Then you have to cook the product, so it's like, it's a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces. So that's why I have sleepless nights. All I think about is sausage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then,
But it's
you've,
cool.
yeah, yeah. You've got to do things like this. Like this is an hour out of your work week, right? Right now that we're taking, let's say you're working 80 hours a week because you got your own business, but you still got to sell, market, do PR,
Yeah.
production, develop new products, deal with customer service. And maybe you're not doing all of these jobs, but you're doing most of them and you're overseeing all of it for sure. How do you
Yeah.
pack that in? And that's if you've got 80 hours. If you're still doing your normal civilian job, now you've got to do that stuff in your part time. That quickly becomes a lot, man. And like anything, your success will deny you the ability to ever make sausage again. You'll have to hire someone to develop sausage because you'll be too busy. You'll be too busy being Chef Maggert,
Yeah.
the
You'll hate
inventor.
sausage, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'll,
you were
you'll
like,
be like, I don't
yeah,
even want to taste another sausage. I'd rather die.
right, exactly. Yeah, like you think Abe Froman wanted to eat sausage on the meal ever again? Not a chance, because he was the sausage king of Chicago. He
I beat
probably
the
fucking
brakes
hated
off of
sausage.
Abe Froman. Yeah. So we
Yeah,
consider ourselves I consider myself the sausage king of the lower Tennessee Valley.
right.
And my business partner's in Tennessee, so we call him the sausage king of the upper Tennessee Valley. So, yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, okay. So how is it going then? I mean, like, there's all these things you have to do. Do you guys have your hands wrapped around it? Do you feel like you're over the hump, or you're over the next hump yet, or where you at?
We'll treat it like a firefight, and we're just going to do a lace report and get some more ammo and some water and get ready for the next one to come, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
for me, that's the most fun of it. So, if you had a job, your regular 9 to 5 job, and people do that and they go to the job, but do they feel excited about doing that? Do they feel a passion for doing that? And I think most people don't. But I think in life you have to find that thing that you're passionate about, but most people won't, and some people won't even look for it, and then that falls back to the original conversation. Like maybe this life just isn't even worth living anymore, because
Mm.
were you waiting for people to bring it to you, this awesome life? You got to find it yourself, you got to create it yourself.
Yeah. 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 And you've got to modify it yourself, right? Like, hey, I want to be the sausage king. It easily could be that it turns out that you were like, sausages have to be eaten with buns a lot of the time, and buns suck. And what really goes crazy
Yeah.
is the bun product, and you're like, it turns out I'm the bun king, not the sausage king. Sure, we sell a lot of sausage, but my buns, because you know how quickly bread is bullshit. Like you're like, yeah, that's bread, but why am I going to eat that thing? Like, you know, calories are precious, carbohydrate calories are even more precious, and I'm eating this bullshit bun. Or I could have
Yeah.
a Maggert muffin, and then I'm like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. So, do you think, is it going to be sausage, or could it be something else? I don't know. Where do you see the
My
company
hope,
head?
my hope is, first of all, that it does what it's supposed to do, right? That it brings people together. That's the most important, right?
Yeah,
And that is the beauty of what we are setting up with our site, because we want that kind of communication back and forth as the social sausage, to people to say, you know what? Hey, guess what, buddy? I got a sausage. What am I supposed to do with this thing? Just hold it in my hand like that, you know? No,
yeah,
I need a
yeah,
bun with it. We're like,
right.
cool. Thanks for bringing that up. Hey, another thing is like, the sausages taste better when they have sauces. So we're stepping on the gas with sauces as well, which have become always very, very important to me, right?
Yeah,
Because if you are in North Carolina, you have a vinegar based sauce. If you are in
mm,
South Carolina, you have a mustard based sauce. If you're in Alabama, and only in Northern Alabama, you have an Alabama white, which, by the way, I will beat the brakes off of anybody's Alabama white. I guarantee it, right? So, why do people not have these things? Because today, like you said, if you wanted duck confit, you could figure out how to order that, right?
yeah,
So I said, and we're continuing to do it, like, if I can have somebody like Amazon deliver my product, somebody who has never had this flavor profile, who's never had a Bosnian sausage before, can now have that.
yeah.
And that sort of enriches your life, right? And then you're going to want to share that and share that idea.
Yeah, you hope, right? You hope when you find something special like that, you're like, I can't wait to go to the next party and bring my Bosnian sausage from Tony Mad Dog Maggert Sausage Company, the
Yeah,
sausage king of
So this
Alabama.
Bosnian place, they're wrapping sausages in a dough, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, that's the Bosnian thing, right? They wrap some kind of meat, be it sausage or something else, and they wrap it in
Yeah,
some kind of like fila dough type thing. Maybe it's cut into little segments, like little nuggets. Maybe it's wrapped
yeah.
around itself, but they do that a lot, and it's wonderful. And most people don't ever have it because it's just not a leading brand that people think about.
Right. Yeah, because big brands that are leading brands, um, they sort of do that. I mean, in the
Yeah.
food world is that way, right? Any restaurant, they're going to give you the most minimal product they can for the money that you're going to separate from your pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but are you doing yourself any justice by doing that? Are you doing yourself better by eating things that are garbage? You know, you can take a wheat and you could break a wheat down in a bunch of different ways and utilize it in a bunch of different ways. Then, therefore, you have a product, a wheat type product that has been bastardized from its original grain. And people just will eat that. You'll eat these buns that last for weeks and weeks. Why? It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So, ergo, that's one of the things, like, you know, that like people end up creating poor health on their own. Your mouth, without some sort of creativeness, is the only place where you can insert calories,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We don't talk about the Navy guys and their creativeness and where they can stick food,
Those
but
Navy guys.
the
Yes.
Navy guys, right? But your mouth is the place where you ingest food, and you have options, right? You can eat well or you can eat garbage. And a lot of
Hmm.
people will choose the other to eat less than favorable food because it's
Mm.
there, it's convenient. And that's kind of unfortunate. So I am of the like mind of, maybe we don't need convenience. Maybe we need to reel back. Maybe we need to slow down. Maybe we need to get together with people. And now that COVID's over, we have the ability to reshape our entire world. And how are we going to do it? Are we going to continue to stay in our houses? Because a lot of people are still doing that. Or are we going to get out there and be part of the community?
Mm. You guys can go check out Sausages of Freedom on Facebook as one of the areas we can go. You can go to the website. There's plenty of
Yeah.
things. You can go to Instagram. It's all out there, and you can check out what Tony and his partners are working on. So we talked about bangers. What other sausages are out there? And then I guess, how do you deal with like here in Southern California? It's not a nationwide brand, but it's called Farmer John's. They had a contract for years and years with the
Yeah.
Dodgers, and so everybody down here just goes Johnsonville Farmer or Farmer John, Hillshire Farm, and then all of a sudden they start running out of sausage brands because Jimmy Dean, right? We'll think about
Jimmy,
that,
yeah.
and that's it. That those brands dominate, and Farmer John only regionally. So you have only a couple of brands that you really go, that's the sausage I get because nobody else plays well in that space.
Right, right. And so it comes down to availability, right? And so we understand that we'll be up against, some of the big players that are out there, and they're not going to like what we're doing. And I think that's totally fine. I don't really have anything to lose. I've already lost a leg, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think that maybe people aren't thinking on the greater scale, right? They think, oh, we're doing this regional thing. We're making enough money. We're good enough. We've made, but I don't really want that. I want to have product that people can enjoy wherever they're at. Because in the Northeast, and I just came back from Boston, tons of sausage up there, right? The folks up there don't have any clue about green hatch chili because green hatch chili comes out of New Mexico, right?
Right.
So why not have a product that's available that people can have that if they wanted to sample that flavor profile? It would be cool.
Yeah. There's a thing too I see companies do where they take something like a green hatch chili. By the way, Glenn Gomes is checking in. Not a fan of bangers, they're too fatty, but he does love a good Portuguese chorizo. So there's something for everybody.
My man. Hey, you're speaking to me. Now, here's the thing, right? Our sauce, and I'm glad that we're getting this kind of dialogue right here. Huge shout out, especially for a Portuguese chorizo, man. Really, really a phenomenal product. Something that we absolutely want to do in our lineup. Because the flavor is just so dynamic, right? And I hear what Glenn is saying. There's a lot of product like a Johnsonville that tastes fatty. That's just something that you don't want, right?
Right.
So ours doesn't taste fatty. Ours tastes phenomenal. In fact, I've got a friend of mine, and she is English, and so she really cuts to the bone when she comments on something. And she said, "Oh, this is the best fucking banger I've ever had in my life. It's like almost like a fucking healthy banger. How the fuck you do it? It's a miracle." And I was like, "Well, that's what we do, man. We put a lot of time and effort into this thing, man, and we want to take it seriously." So it doesn't taste fatty. We hear what you're saying, Glenn. You can't have that. It's got to be a nice, uniform, consistent flavor. Looking at the Portuguese chorizo, I'm all about it. A Mexican chorizo, I'm all about that too.
The thing and this again, this is rare for California, right? But I love to have once a month, something like that, maybe once every 6 weeks. I'll have Italian hot sausage and peppers. Sausage and peppers is a great goddamn meal. However you want to prepare it, it's a wonderful collection of flavors.
Here you go, Pete. That's called the Giuseppe. We've already designed it. It's ready to go. So Giuseppe is Italian for Joe. And as you know, in the Army, everything is blamed on Joe.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So yeah, we've already done it. We've already designed the Italian sausage.
So if I order that through the website and does it come? Is it frozen? And you guys
it'll be frozen. So that's what we're trying to figure out now is how we can do direct to consumer. That's a bit of a challenge that we're trying to figure out. But yeah, the thing will be frozen. It will come in a box, and show up right at your front door. So it is a military grade sausage. So I have designed a sausage for every branch of service.
Yeah. What's the Navy one? I got to ask.
Oh, the Navy one's really fantastic. So the Navy one is a hickory smoked pork with pineapple and sage.
Love it. What's the Space Force one?
The Space Force is really unique because it's got quinoa in it, So, and so using a lot of South American peppers that are not hot, but they're very flavorful.
Okay. Coast Guard?
Well, the Coast Guard isn't really a branch of service, so we've kind of parked that because they're only military during times of war. So So we could make one for this
You
coast
got
guard, and I
to.
constantly think about it, but I'm like
Those
that.
guys are in the Persian Gulf, for crying out loud. It's not our coast. They're everywhere, right? We got to give them credit, man. You got to come up
They're
with the
every,
Coast Guard dog.
I got love for them, but they fall underneath the Department of Homeland Security. So it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
We're
fair enough.
we're we're
What
military when it's time for war. That's it. Like, okay, that's
is the
cool.
Marine one? A devil dog? Is it like a hot dog? What's the Marine one?
We talked about the devil dog when I originally designed it. I wanted to make it like a boudin, like you would get in Louisiana, because of the commandant, General Lejeune,
Okay,
i.e. Lejeune as they call it, which don't
right.
drink the water there.
Yeah,
But then the whole thing just simply became complicated. But then I started to think about the missions that the Marines used to do in Northern Africa, and I've got much love for the Middle East and in North Africa. It's a beautiful spot. So then I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take those spices. I'm going to put those into a sausage for the devil dog,
yeah.
and it is called the devil dog.
Nice. Well, you got to,
Um,
right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, using
You,
Rush Al Hanout, so you got these really, really great flavors. And you can't find that on the grocery store shelves. You get
yeah,
a, hey, I'm Johnsonville. Here's your sausage. Here's your mild Italian. I mean,
yeah.
it's not really exciting. So
Let
I
me.
wanted to make this thing really exciting.
I want to say this too. Like when you go to Costco and you're sampling something and you pop that sausage in your mouth, you never stopped in your tracks with like, oh, damn, that's really good, right? And it seems like that part of the game can be stepped up easily where you put something in your mouth that's sausagey and you say, what the heck is that? I got to have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the way that our sausages are, and if they turn out not to be that way, then we should absolutely stop what we're doing. You
Yeah.
have to have good flavor, you have to have good snap, you have to have good texture. There's all these elements that we put together in order to rate that sausage if it's going to be good to go or not.
Yeah.
And if we get any clue that it's not going to be perfect to our standards, it's not. It doesn't make the lineup. It's got to go.
There's a company out here in California, and who knows if they'll continue to grow because you never know. They started right before the pandemic, but they're trying to change the food supply to restaurants and try to add AI to it and
Right.
allow it to pre-order things and everything else. But yeah, you get in with a couple of these places where you're like a default choice early. Man, that could be the game changer, right? Like all of a sudden you're supplying sausage to you have to put a sausage plant in California because you're like, fuck, we're selling so much sausage there. I don't want to ship it. I want to make it there. That
Yeah,
easily can happen.
absolutely. I mean, that's the problem. That's the problem that we want to have.
Hmm.
And so, using artificial intelligence is hugely important. And I just talked to a good friend of mine who has his PhD in robotics, and we need to do that thing. We need to make this thing, so it's like very hands off, and you just have a good food product, and that's what makes it really consistent, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So what's the biggest problem that you face, man? Apart from like, there's so many things. Like you have to have someone who's going to sell to the B2B market, someone who's going
Yeah,
to B2C, and all these different markets. How do
yeah.
you deal with what's the biggest problem what's the first problem you want to get off your back and have someone else do, and that's what they actually do for a living?
So it's very interesting that you should bring that up. I reached out to a major food supplier, and I won't say who right now.
Hmm.
And he says to me, everybody's looking for a sausage man right now. And I'm going, really? And we're talking big names, right? Like US
Yeah,
Food, Cisco, Performance Food Group, big names, right?
yeah,
And so then we're talking for a few days, and we're going to do things through his company. And all of a sudden he calls me and he's like, look, I've been doing this for 30 years, man. I can get you all over the place. And then here's how I'm going to do it. And we're like, wow, this is cool, man. This is like what we needed. Because to answer your question, we need to definitively understand logistics and how to get product out and how to get it out quickly. That's hard to do,
yeah.
you
Right.
know? So
Yeah.
logistics is hard. And you could do a lot of this stuff where it's hands off and allowing other people to grow and thrive, right? I would like to put money in a truck driver's pocket as they're driving my product across the United States because that'll feed his family. And that kind of
Yeah.
stuff is important to me.
Yeah.
We want to
Yeah.
take these veterans and say, you know what? We will create a franchise where you can start your own sausage truck. where you can make your own money, so you can feed yourself and feed your family. And
Yeah.
because it's near and dear to my heart because of this 22 a day. I'm like, if I could just take one person, man, and give them a better and more efficient tomorrow, so I don't get that
Yeah.
phone call, that'd be better for me.
It's true. That's true. I mean, if you can find ways to create some stability with this, how much do you need? And you don't have to tell me this, but how much do you need to make per sausage then? Like if you've got all these people involved and everybody else is doing this work to try to get this thing done, do you clear a penny? Is it, it's not $1 a sausage, that's for sure. How much do you make per sausage?
Yeah, I think that you will always go and look at percents, right? And so within Sausages of Freedom, we have what we call three phases, right? We have the first phase, which is B2B, like getting stuff into restaurants, stuff like that. Then we have the second thing, which is direct to consumer. And then the third thing, which is doing events. And so each
Mm,
one of those, you can pull each lever, at different times and step on the gas at different times of the year, right? So Talladega in Alabama has over 100,000 spectators that come to Talladega, but they're
right.
only there for literally one weekend. So I
Yeah.
have to get a semi load full of sausage to Talladega in order to support that weekend,
Yeah.
right? So things ebb and flow, and you'll make more money at events than maybe you would do doing business to business, So it all comes down to the margins. I'm being
Yeah.
elusive because it's such a squishy question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
But
then
when people think,
when you're retired military, like the money portion means a little bit less
yeah,
to
but
me.
the business important is the business problem is big because if you're not good at business and you're good at food, you're not going to be in business long, you know?
No, you won't be.
Yeah.
I'm sort of jazzed that I went and got my MBA at a really high level business school. Huge shout out to Indiana University. And so, but then you realize everything that you learn in a business school, like there's nothing like just going down to the courthouse, man, and putting your suit on and signing up and starting a business, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just gut instinct.
The event thing's interesting because food trucks are a thing, and so you pay whatever that fee is, $1,000. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But you could sit there all day long and just hand sausage out the window if you were a food truck and you focused on, three different kinds of sausage, and you just handing
Yeah.
them out the window, handing them out the window, and someone's waving their phone by your transactional, your point of sale thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You think about like if you had sausage of freedom truck in say Daytona, you got bike week, you got the race, you got the other race, you got all these events that are built in that are perfect. You could literally make a living just on events in Daytona.
Yeah, and we will do that, and that's very close, right? I mean, I'm 2 hours from Nashville, so
Right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you got a lot of great things going on, man. What else? What else we need to cover? It sounds like this is an exciting adventure. I want to keep track and keep you on. I want to have some of this sausage too,
yeah. I mean, I'll get some out to you.
please. So what else? What else is good? What else do you want to talk about?
Oh man, I don't have much else on my mind except for sausage, man. It's like
So much
most of my
sausage.
day, and had to stop doing my daytime job, which
You did. You did.
I did. I have not yet, but I feel ever closer to doing that.
Yeah, that's a big thing, man, because that's a very comfortable, too comfortable position to be in, when you have that sweet government contract gig or whatever it
Yeah.
is that you have, and you're going to have to rip that teat out to go get, I don't want to say serious, but to get to the next level with what you're doing, right? And that's a big thing. If you're close to thinking, hey, I'm going to have to do that soon, man, that's huge. That's really huge.
No, I mean, I had 4 months this year when I wasn't working. So I worked for a company and then I wasn't working for a company. And I sort of took a knee for 4 months, and which was interesting because this other company's like, dude, you got this background. We really, really want you. We need you really, really bad. Let's, come work for us. And I was like, well, I'm bored now. So yeah, I'll come work for you. So they're interviewing me, and they say, "So you haven't been working for the past 4 months?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I haven't. What have you been doing for the past 4 months?" I was like, "Oh sweet, I'm so glad you asked." So I went to Italy for a little while, hung out there. Went to the Dominican Republic, hung out there. Went up to New York a few times. Went to DC a few times. Drove my daughter around the United States looking at colleges because she's a senior. I read every Ernest Hemingway book that was ever written. And so I was like, it hasn't been a boring 4 months, man. I've been having a good time. So I'm like, I could do it. I could see like exiting doing my daytime gig to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like you're ready. Do you, is there a sausage truck in your future that you just take out on the road? I mean, if you're going to go do sales calls, why not get face to face with people? That seems to be on par for you.
Yeah, so I think most people think of food trucks, and so what we want to do, what the intent is to take and renovate a city bus and have that be a rolling restaurant.
Right. Yeah. You've talked about this, like a double decker bus and have it be a
Yeah,
restaurant. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, and that's still in the works. I mean, it's still in the plans, and it's like at some point that will happen. But the near target is getting it, getting more stuff out on the streets. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just sort of pick your fight, you pick your challenges.
Oh, it's telling me I've got too many challenges and fights right now.
It's
Man,
fun.
okay. What's that?
It's fun though. It's
It
fun.
is fun. It is fun. I've got a lot of things that I'm doing and enjoying doing, and it sounds like you're doing great too, man. I love that you're the sausage king. You two are the combined sausage kings of Alabama and the Lower Tennessee Valley. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is just sort of where it's happened at, and it's great because my business partner's wife is an attorney, so that makes life a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. Well, listen, unless you have any final thoughts, I'm going to wrap this thing up.
Okay, let's do it.
Anything else you want to say in closing?
No, not anything really to say except for go out there on sausagesofreedom.com. Check us out. We're on all your favorite social media channels. So get a hold of us. Tell us what you think and tell us what you want, man. We want to make product for you. It's the people sausage.
There you go. All right, stand by. Let me wrap this thing up. There's Glenn saying
That's a
something here.
wrap. Make up. Make
Hang on, wait.
up.
There, Glenn is saying, great business conversation. Let's go. Software, yeah, all that stuff. Reading it. Yep, yep, yep. Flavor sauce
Yeah.
is
Can you
common.
connect me with Glenn?
Sure, he's on LinkedIn. We'll get you linked together. And thanks again to everybody for watching. Let me roll these credits. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to.